I would spend a few more time with E because E has to run, and then we'll come back to Prof. E, you have had tough times. You've had very tough times, and many people do not see that side. And, somehow you do not talk about that so frequently. It's easy for people to remember that, $1 billion valuation business, multiple times, 3 times. How do you navigate tough seasons when it looks like everything you are seeing is the other side or the opposite of what you have believed, as it were? Thank you, sir.
Great question. Sorry, this is a fantastic question. One thing I would challenge though is I do talk about it. I just don't think it makes for good news. You understand? Because I think a lot of people like to amplify the good news. But I'm pretty open about the challenges as well. And I would ask everybody, I actually have my Instagram page as a museum. Because if you go through the posts, don't look at the post from 2025. Go and look at the posts from 2014, 2015. Those are the posts that will define the journey. Because obviously, you have to go through the tests to get to the testimony. Now, the way to get through tough times, there's no other way to get through tough times except in the secret place. There's no other way. And for me, that is the only way I've gotten through tough times. I don't know any other way. Some people, when they are in trouble, they can go and meet one minister or one president or somebody. I actually just sit and I just pray my way through it, and I hear from God clearly. And the results are outstanding. I can tell you. I'll just give one testimony, and then, because I indeed have to run. I remember, this is a recent example, so I'm not going to give you the $1 billion ones. Those ones are obvious testimonies. But this is after I've done this a number of times. This was 2022. It was a very, very high season for tech, as you know. This was before the crash. And I was on the road to raise a $100 million fund. And then a journalist wrote an article about one of the companies I was part of. Even though the article did not say I did anything, because indeed I actually did not. It did make some insinuations that were untrue and made it difficult for investors to conclude the transaction, because it claimed I was under SEC investigation, and indeed I actually was not under SEC investigation. They had investigated, but they had concluded their investigation at that point. But because it said I was under investigation, investors were like, well, we have to write to SEC and confirm. Now, anybody who works with SEC knows that they won't answer you. Now, that crashed my fundraise, but I knew God had a plan. So what happened was, imagine I had 100 million lined up, that went to 0. So I just went to pray. After I went to pray, God told me, look, this was not my plan. This was you. So are we ready to work together again? I said, no problem, sir. Well, let's get back to the drawing board. So I laid off my staff. The last day, we had a retreat before I let everybody go, just to reminisce and everything. That last day, I didn't have salaries to pay everybody for the last day. So I had just spent all the money getting everybody there, because God told me, gather everybody together, gather the fragments, let's have a last supper, and then after this, I'll tell you what we'll do next. So everybody was there. So this was not I could avoid paying the bill. No. Everybody was seated waiting for me. I was upstairs. I had 0 in my bank account because I had spent all this money trying to raise this $100 million fund that had fallen apart. And then just before I went downstairs, after my prayers, I called my discipler. And my discipler said, you've handed over your company to God. expect from God this money because he's your senior partner. Just expect it like you would expect to be paid. I said, no problem, sir. So I just sat down there and I said, God, you said my plan was bad. I agreed. But now, whatever you choose to do, take all the glory. And then I went downstairs. As I got downstairs, the accountant and my partner were sitting down at the dining table. It was an Airbnb. And they said, Iyin, did you wire any money into the account? There's some money here. I said, I didn't wire any money into the account. I said, well, somehow, the exact amount for everybody's salaries downstairs entered the bank account. Exact amount. So we started investigating, because one thing I didn't want to do was to touch somebody else's money. And it turned out that there was some payment that we had forgotten about from Angel List that popped into the account that day. The testimony didn't end there. We were in Kenya. I went back. I was, at that time, my wife was doing some work in Barbados. So I went to Barbados to be with the family. And then God told me there was another investor, old investor of mine, that came and said, Iyin, he said, can you come to our founders retreat? At first I was like, I just came from Kenya, so obviously that can't happen. But Holy Spirit just prompted me to ask him, would you pay for the tickets? Because I don't have money to come. Obviously, we were empty. So he said, of course, you should have asked me a long time ago. We'll arrange for your ticket and everything. So because they arranged for the tickets and the hotel, I came back to Kenya. While I was there, I ran into another old investor of mine. And he said, Iyin, you're here? Please, can we see tomorrow morning for breakfast? I sat down with him. He now asked me, okay, how are things going? I just told him that, look, Oga, my deal fell apart. And now, you know, I actually literally said the words, I'm just waiting on God. And he said, okay. He wasn't a believer. He said, okay. You know, I'm actually quite tired of how the industry has treated you, because you're really, really good at what you do. And right there and then, agreed to write me a $10 million check on the spot. I had spent a year trying to raise money, talking to people all over the world. That deal fell apart in 30 minutes. But when God wanted to turn around the captivity of Zion, it was not 48 hours. So nowadays, I actually don't go to pitch anymore. My team is very annoyed with me. They're like, you know, you're a fundraiser per excellence. You used to raise billions. What's going on? I said, look, my sauce is up. And I can assure you that that has been my testimony. So, thank you so much.